For coming to listen to our simple story. I'm Brad Schmidt. I'm an occupational therapist now, and this is my mom. I went through interactive metronome training when I was 17, during the December of my senior year of high school. My life was heading towards pretty dead end. Stay at home with the parents, probably not get out on my own, definitely not succeeding at a career. And now I am an occupational therapist, which I do believe is a pretty good profession. Now I'd like to pass it off to my mom, who knows my past a lot better. As I like to say, she was my frontal lobe growing up. Without her, I would not be here.
Alright, so I am Lori Schmidt, and my background is special education and teaching. I taught early childhood and special ed for about 20 years. And then the last 10 years nearly, I've been doing interactive metronome and own my own business with it ever since Brad went through the program. It's been about 10 years. He went through as a senior in high school. Okay, so I had 3 children. Oh, wait. I have to tell you, today is a very special day because we get to do this presentation. We're really excited. But it's also a very special day because you see this guy? That's my grandson, my oldest daughter's son, Ruben, and today's his birthday. So, okay, so the rest of my story. So we had a very typical family. We had 3 children, Kendra, Brad, and Paul. Brad is the middle child. This was taken when she was a senior, a sophomore, and probably 6th grade. At that time, Brad was 6th in his class at Topeka West, out of a class of about 250. He had a perfect 36 on his ACT in the science part. He was in the gifted program. His classification was gifted with attention deficit. I can't leave any of my children out. I have to tell you that all 3 of them were in the gifted program. So you would think that our family story was just looking up. So my job in this presentation is to paint the other side of the picture, to help you understand how handicapping disconnect is. When your brain is disconnected, even though you're extremely intelligent, certain parts of your life are very difficult. So this is Brad. This is actually just a couple months ago, but when he was 6 months old was actually my first gut feeling as a mom, because he was harder to make eye contact with than my first child. And I thought, he's a boy, you know. By the time he was in preschool, you saw some of the motor delays and the language delays, and his milestones were just a little bit off, but within the normal range. He struggled quite a bit growing up. By the time he was in 4th grade, actually 4th grade, we pulled him out of school, out of our small private school, and put him in public school to have him tested. He ended up going on medication, and we did counseling for his behavior issues and his meltdowns. And senior, as a high schooler, he still did not wash his face on a regular. It was like if I didn't say, Brad, did you wash your face? Or Brad, did you brush your teeth? Or Brad, it didn't get done. So some of those daily hygiene things he couldn't remember as a high schooler. And it wasn't just me that noticed all of these things. He had a job at Papa Murphy's Pizza Place. And if you're familiar with Papa Murphy's, it is a take and bake pizza place. It is the easiest place to have a job. All you do is make pizzas and charge the people. It's a very easy job. But he stopped getting hours. So I sent him in, Brad, go in, ask him, why aren't you getting hours? And the manager said, well, you don't make pizzas fast enough. You have to come in and make pizzas for me. He went in and he proved he could make pizzas fast enough. And from then on, they gave him his token 3 to 5 hours a week of his, because we were a nice family. And, you know, I just know he was their charity case. So in the work world, even in the simple work world, he was not making it. The final blow came his senior year. Remember, he was very smart. And we said, oh, we have this really smart child. He's not going to make it at college. It's like he can't turn in papers. Let's just pretend like his senior year is his college. And we took back all of our frontal lobe, all of our helping him, all of our organization pieces, and let him fly on his own. And within 6 weeks, this kid that was the 6th in his class, with me helping him, with me every night going through, okay, what do you have to do? Be in his frontal lobe, to falling flat on his face. And he had 2 D's and an F. That ended us up in the doctor's office October, 10 years ago today, this month, with me in tears saying, isn't there anything else out there? We have done everything we know, and he's going to be an adult child living at home. And he's too smart to be an adult child living at home. And that's when the doctor said, there's this new thing out. It's called interactive metronome. Why don't you try it? 2 months later, Brad went through interactive metronome. And that's when his life began to change and to look up. Okay.
It's still yours.
Oh, so now I'm going to go into some detail. Are you going to try? We're going to talk about 3 little aspects of Brad's life, 3 areas Brad's life changed. It changed a lot more than these 3 areas, but we're going to talk about them. I said before we were in a small private school, and so this is Brad's preschool class, and this is his 8th grade confirmation class, and basically the same 25 students from preschool were in his grade school. And since Jane's in the audience, I'm going to say, she probably knows that Brad called everybody, hey you. He never called anybody by names, to the point that Tim at one point, not one, lots of times, Tim's my husband, would sit down with Brad and say, hey, when you greet somebody, say, hello, Mr. Fowler, hello, Mr. Vandergaard, or whatever, and use the name, and they'd practice it. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I added that story in.
I remember that.
Okay, because he did not name names. It really came, when I really became aware of this was his middle school years, when I asked him once, Brad, who is that in his class? And he said, I don't know. And it was one of these people that had been in his class for several years. So I assumed he had some core deficits. One of his core deficits was attention. He was on attention deficit medication by this point. So he just didn't attend. He had social disconnect. He really did not care about other people that much, so he didn't pay attention to the social realm. And he had language processing delays in terms of he couldn't get his words out easily. It always took him longer to get his words out. So I just assumed it was those core deficits is why he did not pay attention. When he came back from college after IM was when I finally thought, oh my goodness, maybe that part of his brain is not even wired. Because he said this story that he went to the mall. He remembers as a child going to the mall with me and being afraid of being separated. And the reason he was afraid of being separated was that he knew the policeman that found him would ask, what does your mom look like? And he could not say what his mom looked like. And he remembers having that fear as a child. So Brad, I want you to talk about that because as you matured, that changed a little bit. What do you think the difference is?
You always would be saying that this is facial recognition. I like to call it attribute assignment. Not sure if there's a more technical term for it, but that's what I've labeled it as. And that's the ability of connecting dots together. To look at someone's face and know their name. Or to be told someone's name and be able to think about what their face looks like. Connecting the bits of information. And now this is a really, really important piece of the world beyond just recognizing people. Because there's also bits of information about people as their personalities. When you look at someone's face, in a healthy, well-working mind, immediately the brain will pop up information about the person, your relationship with the person. And so here's the story I like to tell about that. Bullying. I was bullied as a kid. The weird kid always is. But the problem is, when I think back, I put myself in so many bad situations with the bully, of being alone with the bully, and would walk right into it. And so I think what one of my problems is when I looked at someone's face, I didn't immediately identify them as friend or foe. And so this disconnect led to more stress. Because imagine walking around, you see all these faces out here, and you're not entirely sure, just in your gut level, if you thought about it more, yeah, you could figure it out, but just in your gut intuition, not entirely sure whether each person out there is going to talk to you, befriend you, or try to choke you. So the summary of this is that I was melting down because I was living in a schizophrenic world filled with schizophrenic people. Because if you don't know if they're going to hurt you or help you, how can you be calm?
So I want to say one little piece on this real quick. When he came back from college, I think this attribute assignment is a good phrase. He came back from college one day and he said, you know, Mom, as a child, I don't think I put personalities with people because I just realized there's this one kid at college that, you know, he talks a lot and I don't really like his personality. And I've never judged people before. I've never decided whether I liked him or not. And then he said, it's not really that this kid talks too much, it's that, because Brad always puts the best light on things, he said, it's not that this kid talks too much, it's that I can't listen that much. So I just think that's a good. Okay, so the second attribute, so that was facial recognition, that maybe it's really a disconnect of attributes, that you're not able to connect pieces of the data together versus facial recognition. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about executive functioning. That's this higher level thought processes that happen up in the frontal lobe of your brain, the organizing, the planning, the attending. And so Brad, when he was younger, he was given the job of taking the trash out, the kitchen trash out. And so in third grade, you say, okay, this is going to be your job, your way to help the family, and every night you get to take out the trash out. Whenever it gets full, you do it. You know, and it's always like, Brad, what else? Look around. You have to sort of nudge a little bit, and then he'd remember, but he never self-initiated. Fifth grade, it's like, if you can't remember to take the garbage out, we might have to dock your allowance a little bit. So that kind of technique to try to deal with it. By seventh grade, you're getting really frustrated because he never, every single time, it's like, Brad, think, what else do you have to do? So the garbage can ends up on the bed. And by ninth grade, by ninth grade, you know, you're saying, I am not going to do it for him, and you just let it overflow, and he's got to see that. And he never, ever, ever self-initiated, where it wasn't a little bit of a clue that I didn't say something, think, or just a pause long enough, but something initiated it for him. So, until about a month after I am. And a month after I am, I'm sitting at my computer, and he walks through the kitchen, and I hear him taking out the garbage. And I say, Brad, what are you doing? I'm taking out the garbage. Okay, I know last fall, senior in high school, the fall of your senior year, that you would walk in this kitchen, you would see that trash can needed taken out, and you would walk right by it. What was the difference in the way your brain is working last fall versus right now, end of January, 4 months later? And this is how he describes that. Well, first I want to set the tone that I thought it was executive function again. I thought he didn't attend, he just socially wasn't connected enough to care, and he had no initiation. Those were more frontal lobe things. That's not actually how Brad describes it. Brad, go ahead.
So I really like using metaphors to explain how the brain works. The first metaphor for how my brain worked, pre-IM and post-IM, is that when I was wandering around doing absolutely nothing, I was traveling through a tunnel of activity. And branching off the sides, I could see up ahead this tunnel branched out into doing different things, to taking out the trash, towards watching TV, towards sitting down over there. There's all the options of my life that I could go to. But as I would walk along, I'd see the trash. I would see that it needs taken out. But as I would get to it, that opportunity to turn myself, to turn off this path, would close up, and I'd just have to keep walking right on by. Even if I was doing nothing, I couldn't change off of it. My second metaphor, if physics is more your thing to understand, inertia. When I'm walking through the kitchen, I had a huge inertia weight behind me, pushing me forward every step to continue doing nothing, because just I was wandering around doing nothing. And I would see the trash there, but wouldn't be nimble enough to stop, turn on a dime, pick it up and take it out. It just couldn't be done. Trying to do a 180 with a semi-truck, you can't do it. Now, post-IM, I now have a good story of how quickly my brain could turn on a dime. It was actually in occupational therapy school. All my classmates were sitting around studying, so we're intense on in this tunnel of studying. We're doing what we have to do. And then, by us, walks a girl who drops to the ground. Just faints right there. And I was the first person, and actually my fellow students commented on how I was the first person to get up and move over there, to be the first responder, to be the first one to be able to move my inertia, turn it, and go do something else, not be stuck on what I'm doing, and be able to act and do what needed to be done. And so instead of executive functionings, I noticed it, and I cared about it, and I felt bad about missing it. I did.
Garbage, right.
But I just couldn't get myself to turn and do it.
So that's the difference. That's why his insight is so important, is because it really wasn't about an executive function as much as it was about cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift gears and to do something different than what you're doing. And that's a huge issue for a lot of the kids.
Even if that doing something is doing nothing, because that's what I would be doing nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so this is about his social skills. I had told you before that Brad was pretty socially disconnected as a child, and I was like all moms. I understand moms that are in denial, because I was definitely in denial in terms of he's not going to take attention deficit medication, he's too smart. 3 years later he's on medication. All the different pieces, I understood the denial. But in the social realm, I always thought, oh well, maybe at school he's more connected. It was about third grade that I came to pick him up, and you'd stand out in the hall, it's a small school, and wait for your kids to get out of class, when I saw a sign, a poster, a new poster the kids had made, Signs of Spring. Oh look, there's a picture of Brad on that poster. And I went up to that poster and I looked at it, and this picture of Brad leaning against the wall with a book in his hand, reading his book, and the caption underneath read, "You know it's spring when Brad no longer wears his gloves when he reads his books at recess." And that point, even right now, I could feel the weight. That was the point. I could no longer be in denial, and I knew that my son had no friends and was not connected and was isolated at school. Even though that's a funny story, it does bring back emotions. So this is post-IM. He went through his senior year, December of his senior year.
Yep. So, I think the point that really shows my friendship connections. It's really hard to say pre-IM how many friends I actually had, because what's a friend? What's an acquaintance? It's hard to define. But
He didn't have friends.
Fair enough. What really shows how many friends I did make was my high school graduation. A high school graduation, people go out and go to their friends' houses for their open house. So it's kind of a good test. Are you good enough friends with someone for them to take the time to come over to see you? And I would have to say, hands down, I made more friends in those last 4 months than I did over the entire 4 years of high school, or even my entire school career. Because I was sitting down in our living room with a full living room of other kids. I think it was actually even more than the couch could handle. We actually had to pull over other chairs. And just talking, enjoying each other's companies, just hanging out, which is not something I would do before.
As a mom, it was a very touching moment because it was the first time I saw him socially connected in a group. The
play dates you used to fix for me. You'd call over the friends, and then Drew and Corey would be sitting outside playing, and I'd be inside playing with Legos or reading my book. I didn't hang out with people. I didn't socially connect like that. Now, the next bit, the other part, the really crystallized my ability to see the social web and to be able to feel connected to the social web. So that was senior year of high school. 4 months end of the semester, 3 months of summer, college. First bit of college is band camp. First day of band camp, you have 300 college students sitting and ambling around the halls of the music building, waiting for everything to start up. And I remember what really crystallized this moment is that I stood in that hallway. It's one of the happiest bits of my life. And I looked down, and I knew that I could make a connection. I could sit down and talk and make a connection with any person down that hall. I have more options for friends than I could ever possibly make. And you don't really understand how wonderful a thing that is until you don't understand how wonderful a thing that is.
You've experienced it. Okay, so we're going to skip this one, but you can ask me about it later. That's the slide the story I get to skip if we're out of time. So I'm going to talk about metacognition now. Metacognition is, I define it as the ability to think about your own thoughts. Brad did not have the ability to metacognate, to think about his own thoughts when he was a child. We had started him on a different medication, and I'd say, so do you think that helped you, Brad? I don't know. Or I would say, so at school, why do you think that happened? I don't know. Or what were you thinking about that? I don't know. And he'd always say it almost like he was insulted that I would ask him, how do you expect me to know that? Well, that's about your thoughts. But he didn't get it. He did not get it. Yeah. Brad, you want to talk a little bit about how having access to metacognition now has changed your life?
Well, first off, I'm able to give this presentation. The vast majority of what I'm saying here is me analyzing what I was thinking. So right there, metacognition. But I think one bit that helped me the most with metacognition is the ability to control my own emotions, which you might think is kind of, why are those two connected? So here's how it works. Everyone always has emotions somewhere. And when you reach something stressful, those emotions build up, like with bullying. Bullies love to get a rile out of people. That's what they do. So they would play with my emotional centers, stressing me out, and I wasn't able to see my own emotions before they came out.
Once you phrased it, it was when I exploded that I saw, oh, that
Yes.
kid's exploding. Yeah.
The most I knew about my own emotions was what I was feeling my face expressing.
Yeah.
And so, if you're running that behind, if you've already gotten to the point of the emotions on your face, it's too late to hold it back.
Okay, so we had titled this presentation, The Joy and Grief of I Am. And we titled it because I Am offered Brad the fullness of life. But he did miss out. He missed out on a lot when he was a child. He missed out on playtime when he was doing his entire day's schoolwork at the kitchen table every night. He missed out on riding bikes with friends and just having fun playing with friends. He missed out on being invited to birthday parties.
I missed out on friends.
He missed out on friends and social connections and all those experiences that come with it. So he missed out on a lot. And so there's some grieving that you have to do with that. But he also gained a tremendous amount with this program, and that's the joy and the fullness of life. I hope you have seen here today that what's different about his joy and fullness is that he knows what it was like not to have it. I'm going to do this. This is his quote. So most of these statements have been his quotes throughout the last 10 years. This was his.
She likes quoting me even though I'm here.
And he once said this to me, you know, there was once a boy with a childhood, but he was a different boy than the man that stands here before you today.
So, really, I do have to grieve the loss of my childhood because I have gained so much from I Am, but there are some things that I've been missing throughout my childhood that I have now. Such as pride in myself and my accomplishments, the ability to work together with other people for a common goal, being able to just enjoy life and be silly when appropriate, and the ability just to sit quietly and just do nothing. To connect with my friends and family